In the first chapter, it's revealed that the Peterson sisters had a house with a pool. I'm sorry, people in poverty don't have their own swimming pool. So stop whining about how rich somebody else is. You seem to be doing fine. Welcome to Rock and Roll Book Club, where we discuss books by and about musicians and the music business. I'm Dave, and on this episode, me and my co-hosts Shelley and Jen are discussing Eternal Flame, the authorized biography of the Bangles by Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. Eternal Flame is the first ever authorized biography of the iconic all-girl band. The Bangles were one of the most successful pop groups of the 1980s. Almost everyone alive during that decade remembers the band's slew of hits like Manic Monday, In Your Room, Walk Like an Egyptian, Going Down to Liverpool, If She Knew What She Wants, Eternal Flame, and many more. However, few know the real backstory of the Bangles, from their formation in Los Angeles in the early 1980s to their premature breakup in 1989. Eternal Flame documents it all. Through exclusive interviews with founding members Debbi Peterson, Vicki Peterson, and Susanna Hoffs, the book tells the story of the Bangles from their formation as the Bangs to hitting the top of the Billboard Hot 100 charts. It also recounts incident after incident of the band's struggles with the rampant sexism and misogyny in the media and music industry at the time. Ultimately, infighting and industry pressure crushed the band by the end of the 1980s. Though the music of the Bangles has endured, it took until now for the band to reclaim its legacy and set the record straight about the many misconceptions regarding the band. Now, don't forget this month's playlist of deep cuts from the Bangles. Links for Spotify and Apple Music are in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified about new episodes. Hey, welcome to Rock and Roll Book Club. I'm Dave. I'm here with my co-host, Jen and Shelley. We are here for episode, 16 at this point?
Yeah.
We're doing the book Eternal Flame, the official authorized biography of the Bangles by Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. This is a highly anticipated book for, I think, all of us, but me especially, because the Bangles are a big band for me. But also, our book club started on the Susanna Hoffs novel that she wrote, This Bird Has Flown. So we started our entire thing around the Bangles. So we're kind of coming full circle a little bit. But before we start talking about the book, let me do a history lesson. I'm going to do a history lesson on both our author and on the Bangles. Okay, so
fancy, Dave.
Yeah. Author Jennifer Otter Bickerdike. This is not her first book. She is, besides writing this book on the Bangles, she's also written books on Will Sargent of Echo and the Bunnymen, Britney Spears, Nico of the Velvet Underground, and assorted other rock books, one on fandom, etc. So she's written, I think it was six or seven other books. Nine books?
I think it was 9.
Okay, so she's written 9 other books. As far as the history of the Bangles go, I mean, holy smokes, one of the most successful groups in pop music history. They always get tagged the girl group thing, and that's something that we're going to be discussing. But if you want to talk about girl groups, they are one of the most successful in music history as well, even if you don't tag that. Their original recording career was about 1983 to 1989. They had 3 gold or platinum albums during that time. They sold tens of millions of albums overall. Hits like Manic Monday, Hero Takes a Fall, Walk Like an Egyptian, Eternal Flame, In Your Room. I could go on and on and on. They have a lot of enduring hits. They did break up at the end of the 80s. They got back together at the end of the 90s. And ostensibly have been together, and maybe still now. The last show they ever played was in 2019 at a festival in California, and they have nothing on the books now. Of course, COVID happened, but they have nothing on the books now. Susanna Hoffs has some solo appearances at some festivals, and the Peterson sisters have played together recently, including a time when I saw them not too long ago in Wisconsin.
The Bangles, I don't go as deep as you do. I've always liked them. I've always respected them. Their music has always been fun, entertaining. I mean, they've got rhythm. They're great. I like the Bangles.
Okay. Shelley?
Yeah, I also like them. A young Shelley would get out my boombox and like dance around in the yard as a child to the Bangles. So, singing Eternal Flame and walking like an Egyptian and the whole bit. And I know that Vicki Peterson would hate it that I'm saying this, but I thought Susanna Hoffs was so pretty, and she just had like
Me too.
the best hair and the best outfits, and I think I idolized her a little bit as a kid.
All right. Well, my impression was I'm a massive Bangles fan. Some people have this impression they were just like these little 80s Pop-Tarts, and they weren't a serious band, and I've never seen them that way. Like, I have tons of their records. Okay, here's All Over the Place. Here's my Walking Down Your Street 12-inch. How about Hazy Shade of Winter? I got my Everything album. It's framed. I didn't want to take it out of the frame because that would have been too annoying. You want to talk singles? Okay, hold on.
Dave's going deep.
Here's Hero Takes a Fall. Here is Manic Monday. Here is Walking Down Your Street. Here's In Your Room. I even have Susanna Hoffs' movie, The All-Nighter, on DVD. Okay. A couple of CDs.
Scandalous.
I mean, look at this. The Bangles' Greatest Hits. Here's Everything. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bangles. Their comeback album, Doll Revolution. And then their final album, Sweetheart of the Sun. And then what may end up being the final ever Bangles recordings are on this thing called 3x4, which features the Bangles, the 3 O'Clock, the Dream Syndicate, and Rain Parade. And this came out in 2018, and this is probably going to end up being, I'm guessing the last ever Bangles recording, because as we'll discuss, they might not be coming back. Let's talk about the early days, how the band formed. You got the Peterson sisters living in Southern California, Susanna Hoffs also from different part of Southern California. And of course, Michael Steele, whatever, is not really part of the band until they already got a little bit established. So when they talk about the really early days, they're mostly talking about the Peterson sisters and Susanna. And I asked the question, why are there so many references to Susanna Hoffs' family's wealth? It is referenced over and over and over and over. And it's not just like the author, it's the Peterson sisters constantly bring it up, how wealthy they were. And so they're just not like normal people, or they don't blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, in the first chapter, it's revealed that the Peterson sisters had a house with a pool. I'm sorry, people in poverty don't have their own fucking swimming pool. So stop whining about how rich somebody else is. You seem to be doing fine. Okay. I was annoyed by the constant talk about how wealthy they were. So fucking what?
Okay, I'm going to say this. Susanna Hoffs is she's so beautiful. So out of the gate, she's just already winning, and she's super cool. So let's find all these reasons why to take her down.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
It is human nature. That's all.
It's like the jealousy, which I know we'll get into that too, but the clear jealousy of Susanna getting the spotlight is the beginning of that. And then it's like, once I hate to say this, but like, I've probably done this in my life where it's like, once there's one thing that you're annoyed with the person about, then it makes it so much easier for everything else about them to be annoying.
Yeah.
You know? And so with Debbi and Vicki, kind of they started the band, and then Susanna kind of took over. There was a lot of that jealousy there, and I think that they were just glomming on.
It was right there. Yeah, that jealousy was right there at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But Susanna never had the intention of doing that.
I agree.
That's the thing.
Survival of the fittest. It's just what happens.
And I also think that it's a blatant mischaracterization that the Petersons to say that, like, okay, so they had this band going and then Susanna came in and all of a sudden it's like she took the front role. That's not how it worked out. First of all, they had tons of experience. She had none. She joined them. They all acknowledge it clicked. There was something magic about the three of them with the way they sang and the way they played and whatever. It wasn't anything of I'm going to take over.
Well, and she couldn't help it that she had great stage presence. Like, she knew how to work the camera. You know, leading up to this episode, I was watching, you know, a handful of their videos, and Susanna is making eye contact and flirting. And in the book, it talks about how she had kind of studied that of stars that she admired growing up. And when you see Vicki Peterson, she looks pissed. Like, she looks like she's gonna kick somebody's ass most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you might get like a little smile here, but like her stage presence is, I'm tough, I'm a badass, and I'm gonna kick your ass. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And there are so many female musicians that I admire for that. But in the context of the Bangles and the pop music world, like, that doesn't go over as well as what Susanna was doing, especially in the 80s.
No, you couldn't put Joan Jett in the Bangles. Like, that sort of tough rocker woman of like, I'm hard, I'm whatever. Okay, like, I love Joan Jett too, and she can write pop songs and she can do all sorts of stuff. However, she wouldn't be right for the Bangles. Now, I'm not going to say that Vicki wasn't right for the Bangles, because of course she is a Bangle. She formed the band. But yeah, there is
but
something
for mainstream Bangles and for mainstream radio.
Yeah,
you know, and videos.
Is that a crime that she understands how cameras work? You know,
exactly.
I mean, the most infamous part in the book that they talk about is the video for Walk Like an Egyptian, where the close up on Susanna Hoffs and her eyes. And okay. And that's like every man is like, oh my God, whatever. Okay. Well, they explained, the director did, that was shot from way in the back. They zoomed in. She could have not had any idea that camera was closed in on just her face. She just did that. And if you look at Bangles' live videos, she's constantly doing shit with her eyes and making eye contact with the crowd and whatever. That was nothing unusual. So either they're putting motive to something. The director did that, you know, and it was correct to do because it was memorable and it made people remember the fucking video, you know?
That's like the most iconic moment of that video.
Right. And I don't think that's anything that they should be ashamed of or embarrassed about or angry about. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Also, thanks, Susanna, for helping us sell more records and getting more views on our videos. Like,
who is the leader of this band? There is no front person. They made a point of saying we don't have a lead singer, but that doesn't work. 99% of bands have one person who's the central focus, right? And it does make it easier for people just to assume.
Jen, I know you have strong feelings on that.
Let's get into this because
and I love that look on your face.
Yeah, did the industry
I'm about to go off. Look.
Did the industry create these problems, or were these already there and they were just made worse? Jen?
Here's the thing. You could say as much as you want that there is not a front man. There's a front woman, a front person. There's always a front person. You've got Mick, you've got Keith. It's impossible. The singer, the one that is belting it out, the one that is dancing around, the one that is pretty much doing a lot of the intros. Doing a lot of the talking. It's really hard to say you're a band with no lead singer.
You know, we talked about it in the Van Halen one. Music is not just listening. It's also visual, and people have to look at something. And people fixate on one person, the front person. That's throughout the history of music. It has sucked to be the drummer because you're in the back and you don't get the spotlight and whatever. That is a common problem. Bass players typically stand a little bit towards the back. So there's always somebody who's in front, and there's probably in almost every band some type of stress or jealousy about why is that person getting more attention than me? Are successful bands ever really democracies? Or is that the case? Do we think that's really, honestly the case?
I'm trying to think of bands where there would be 4 singers that got equal attention and I come up short. I I can't. Can you guys
There's
think
the
of any
Beatles,
that?
there's the Beatles, Kiss, and the Bangles all have 4 lead singers. Okay, but even then, even the Beatles, you're talking about John and Paul are really the main ones.
Yep.
George is sort of a distant second, and Ringo way in the back.
I was great.
Kiss,
Yep.
Gene
Ringo.
Simmons and Paul Stanley are the 2 dominant guys. Ace would be a deep second. Peter Criss, deep third. But that
Well,
is
they were also lucky if like those guys showed up.
well,
So,
but you know what I mean? Like even then with 4 lead singers, it was still kind of hard. Those bands had tons of jealousy over who was more focused on. George Harrison walked out of the studio because he was so frustrated that John Lennon and Paul McCartney didn't listen to him enough. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not completely unique to this one band.
well, my point is that it doesn't work. I don't know a band where it works.
And the Bangles were at a disadvantage. They had 4 singers. Now that means somebody's song is going to get picked and somebody's isn't. Some song is going to be the single and one isn't. Now, if are you going to force democracy and say, okay, well, if Susanna Hoffs gets a song, that means the next one has to be Vicki. Then the next one has to be Debbi. Then okay. Are you going to do that? Does that sacrifice the quality of the music? Maybe. Susanna Hoffs songs are better in that instance. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying forcing democracy on a creative entity like that is a recipe for disaster. Now, excluding people's views is another recipe for disaster. I mean, people feeling like they're not represented and they don't get a say is also really bad news. Yes,
But
Jen.
here's the thing. They don't have the control to say we have 4 lead singers. They don't have the control. They just
They
don't.
tried.
Yeah, they
But,
sure tried.
yeah.
In addition
Yeah.
to it being like the 80s, and you've got 4 women that are forging this band where they're all the lead singers. It's just not going to work.
No, and they were constantly compared to the Go-Go's, but a big difference with the Go-Go's is they had a clear lead singer in Belinda Carlisle. So it was still, she was supposed to be the focus, right? I just think what they're attributing to Susanna Hoffs trying to take over is the fact that the media and the record industry is generally pretty lazy and they like to focus on one person. They don't focus on 4. They focus on 1. Everyone else is the background, no matter who you are. And I think they got caught by that. I mean, it wasn't intentional against Vicki or Debbi or Michael.
So one of the things that is unfortunate is that, like, I agree with you. Yes, you just kind of like want a lead singer. You want someone that you have to look at. And unfortunately for the other members in the band, the cultural ideals of beauty, Susanna fit into that. She's petite, she's, cute and flirty. And, the rest of them were more like rockers. And so
I would argue slightly differently. I would say Susanna Hoffs stands out because she doesn't fit the mode of the 80s sex symbol. If you remember back then, it was skinny blonde girls. That was
that's true.
That was the beach blonde girl or whatever was the prototype sex symbol that all of the marketing and advertising people thought that's all men want is just skinny blondes. And like that. So there is a sort of a thing, and she goes away from that stereotype. She does look different. She's got black curly hair. She's not tall. She's short. She's whatever. So I think it maybe was even more pronounced because of the fact that she wasn't the prototypical sex symbol look. You know what I mean?
Perhaps. Yeah.
My next area of going into was working with a major label, a large budget, and an actual producer. Okay.
An actual asshole of a producer.
And there's no doubt that he is a complete asshole and a dick, but was he any more of a dick than most producers of the era? Like, is he so much different than anyone else that was in his position? The producer is in charge of the budget. They are given hundreds of thousands of dollars and they have to get this thing done for the people in charge, i.e. the record label. So they work for the label. They don't necessarily work for the artist, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a separate role. Every band at the early level is subject to what they're going through. And my question was, did the band ultimately benefit from his heavy-handedness? And did the songs wind up better or worse? I mean, on the one hand, he was a dick and he caused obvious psychological trauma to
Yes.
Debbi Peterson, it would seem. However, the proof is in the pudding. He had a double platinum album on that Different Light. Like that's millions of albums. That's such a huge standard. The band didn't turn down the success. They didn't say, no, we don't want our platinum record. Like they knew I just felt like, did he make it better? Would those songs have been better if he weren't involved? Would the Bangles' career have been better? Yes.
I'm getting to this in my minutes, so I don't want to spoil this, but I'm going to talk about the Wrecking Crew because they mentioned Carol Kay in this.
Mm-hmm.
And the Wrecking Crew, as anyone may or may not know, was a group of session musicians that played with the Beach Boys, Jan and Dean. I mean, Phil Spector, anything Phil Spector did. Glenn Campbell was one. It's an amazing group of musicians that are hired in the studio to really make that sound boom. And it just, I think, for many situations, the Monkees, it's needed. You've got
right. I guess my point would be as far as the Bangles go.
Yeah.
They were fighting this perception that they couldn't play. And the fact that they did have session musicians come in doesn't help with that perception. However, it wasn't like the producer was going around telling everybody. So exactly. These things are done quietly. They're paid for discretion. It happens a lot. There are plenty of Kiss records that Ace Frehley isn't on. There are plenty of why. Ace just he was busy that day. He had a card game or something.
Yeah.
These sound embellishments. Seriously.
It does happen. Well, I think it's done for the most part for ease for the producer because they know that these people can do stuff quick without any issues, without any drama. It's like you'll be in and out in 45 minutes. Whereas
studio time's expensive.
Right. The band is subject to all sorts of other issues, egos and whatever. And it's like, if I can just get this guy in to come in for 45 minutes, finish it and be done, my day is so much better, Yes. So sometimes it is just done for the ease of the producer.
It's really hard to tell. I mean, there's no way of saying whether the songs wound up better or worse. I'm sure it depends on, he has a much different opinion than the Bangles do. But the Bangles did say that when they got him the hell out of there, that they felt like they were doing their best work. And to me, that's kind of the most important thing is like, you're the artist, you're the creator, you should feel good about the work that you're doing. And that asshole, like he did a number on Debbi Peterson. I mean, he like picked on her. And so regardless of whether that's how it works in the industry, like singling her out especially is not cool. I mean, that's uncalled for. But I would like to know like other bands that worked with him, what do they think? Like, did he treat them that way also?
I mean, there was a comment in the book. I think Vicki or Debbi said something like, David Kahn made his career on the Bangles. Like he parlayed that success of Different Light. I'm a producer and a co-writer on a double platinum album. Now you can hire me and I'm a big deal. And that's how it works in the industry. You have a successful record, your status goes way up, And so he was considered to industry people as the person who made that record. Miles, if they really wanted to, Miles Copeland as a manager, he's a heavy hitter. When you manage the Police and you manage Sting, you are a big fucking deal and you have clout in the industry. And if he really put his, foot down and said, my band is not going to work with this guy. Fuck you. We're going to, they could have done something. I think maybe they didn't realize that was an option, because they did say Miles was gone all the time. He was busy on tour with the Police. He was always gone with Sting. They never really had a lot of one-on-one with him. They had these his assistants or whatever there a lot too.
Like the book, like if I could summarize the book in a couple of sentences, it would be watch as misogyny plays out over and over and over. So that's my answer to your question.
I am with her.
I mean, a lot of these same scenarios did happen to other bands. I just think seems like it was much worse with regards to the Bangles and the kind of indignities that they would have to suffer from. And I think a lot of that, the star making machine stuff, I think that's typical of almost any artist. What's different with them is the way the media dealt with them, because the media was the most guilty of putting forth these notions that women can't play and that they're just little starlets and whatever, and it wasn't just men interviewers. I watched a lot of YouTube the last couple of days with interviews with the Bangles from the mid 80s. And it was women interviews would ask them the most ridiculously sexist questions. And you're kind of like, Jesus, lady, like, do you have any self-respect? Like, how could you ask them that, And even someone like Dick Clark, who's Mr. Milquetoast, middle of the road, ask them on national television if they play their own instruments. Like they wouldn't ask In Excess that. They wouldn't have asked any other, no other band would be put up to that. So yeah, there is a difference with them. I think it was the media, not necessarily the music industry. I think the industry went with what they think works, which is a pretty face and a catchy song. And if that's what it takes, give us that.
That's a recipe for the success. Absolutely.
Right? And everything else is like secondary. We don't want to hear about that shit. But the media would focus on the drama. The media would focus on was there a rivalry with the Go-Go's? Because of course there can only be one girl band at a time, Now, fortunately for the world, the Go-Go's broke up about 1985, right as the Bangles really hit big. So it was sort of like one ends, the other starts. Like you still only have that one.
Yeah, they were like, there's only room for one girl band, because literally radio stations would say, we can't play your song because we are already playing a Go-Go song. We're already playing a song by a female artist.
And it is true that in the 80s, they did have quotas about female voices and how you couldn't have one backed by the other. So if you had Pat Benatar, you could not have a woman next, because that was just undone. You never heard of that in the 80s. Even though it would make sense to go Pat Benatar into the Go-Go's or into whatever, just didn't do it.
Because there could have been like a really, really cool Lilith Fair. No offense to the other Lilith Fair, but I'm telling you, you could have the cool Lilith Fair with Bangles, with Go-Go's, and like Heart, Pat Benatar. I mean, come on. And then bring in Bonnie Raitt. Come on. Prince. That whole debacle with Prince. I'm like, I don't know. I love,
which part of it?
Just the control, just how they were kind of at his beck and call, their choice as well. Do you know what I mean? I just felt there was a lot of following Prince around. And yeah, that song is amazing. Manic Monday. It's an amazing song.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I thought it fit in with that media narrative of the media couldn't get past the fact that Prince might actually just like the Bangles and just gave them a song.
Yes, absolutely.
Like they couldn't understand, like, whoa, did Prince write all your songs? Did Prince play all the instruments? Are you dating Prince? Is Prince going to be here at the show tonight? Is Prince going to be, and it was like, no, he did one fucking song. I mean, it was like, but it was an awesome song. It was the biggest song the band ever did. I don't know. Eternal Flame might have wound up being bigger, but I don't know. So yeah, I thought the sexist, misogynist aspect was the belief that Prince would only work with somebody if he was, banging him, and that their career was completely because of Prince. Like, it certainly helped. And the book made that clear. The Bangles understood that helped.
Yeah.
But like, it didn't make the band.
No, it did not make the band. No, I agree.
Right.
Although I will tell you,
the band made the band.
I know Prince's version of Manic Monday is out there and it's great, but it's a Bangles song. It is totally theirs. They have defined it as theirs, the same way Sinead O'Connor defined Nothing Compares to You. I know Prince wrote that one too, but it is a Sinead O'Connor song. She defines it, and the Bangles define Manic Monday. And the original demo that Prince did is cool, but it's just a footnote. The song is the Bangles song, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know.
I have to say that my misogyny moment, so hard to pick one because it was just so apparent throughout their entire career.
Many.
Deep breaths, Shelley. Deep breaths. But you already mentioned it, Dave. The fact that no one thought they could play their own instruments, like what? Come on. It's like, well, you're just little girls. Like you couldn't possibly play a guitar. You couldn't possibly write music. And it's just like, oh my God, come on. And I feel like if I was a Bangle, I would have been so filled with complete rage all of the time. Like I would have been shouting from, I'm not saying they did anything wrong, and I know you can't do this, it'll be a career killer, but I would have wanted to shout from the rooftops all of the time. We play our own instruments, we write our own music, quit it with this bullshit,
And Prince didn't make us.
Right.
Prince made a song, and we had to follow him around and show up at his freaking beck and call and watch him drool over Susanna and then not show up. That's right. What it is. Like, Prince, don't be an asshole.
And I don't necessarily think Prince did anything wrong. I think
I don't know that was normally
his fault.
Does.
You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
He finds somebody he likes. They become his sort of muse for a minute. It's not as though because Susanna Hoffs didn't fuck him, he like took the song back or something. I mean, it was like,
I know. It just is
I just think he's like, that's what he did. If you remember, he gave a song to Sheila E. He gives a song to Sheena Easton. He gave a song to, all these different people were doing Prince songs. So it was an era. And
it just bugged me. I like the fact that they literally, like, he's Prince. I get it. Then we can move on from this, because I had an issue with the instruments. I had an issue with every time they were pitted against each other, which they already were within the band without any additional help from anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of feel bad for the Bangles.
Oh, I feel pissed off on their behalf.
Yeah. I mean, my example of the sexist, misogynist bullshit they were subjected to is pretty much really the way Susanna Hoffs was treated was she was objectified, and not just by the media and the music industry, but the band members themselves seemed to be fixated on Susanna Hoffs' attractiveness, and that was somehow her problem, and that she was doing something untoward to make herself famous. And I mean, Vicki Peterson later in the book stated it as fact that Susanna Hoffs never really wanted to be in a band, that she just wanted to be famous. I don't recall Susanna Hoffs ever saying that.
Yeah, that's a jealousy comment. That's a mean
right.
Girl.
That's just a bullshit comment. And okay, there was a behind the music of the Bangles, came out in the late 90s, right when they got back together, and they aired all this crap out. Okay, they said all the same issues, the issues with the focus on Susanna and how jealous they felt and how they felt put aside and blah blah blah. I thought they got past it at that point. They got back together. They made 2 more records. And now we're finding out 20 more years after the fact, they still haven't gotten past that.
We'll never get past it.
They still blame Susanna Hoffs for why the Bangles didn't turn out exactly the way that they wanted, even though I think without her, they might not have ever gotten famous. I'm not saying that she was the only talented person. I love the Bangles. I love all 4 of them. I know they all have talent. I made that playlist of deep cuts, and that's stuff from all of them. I know they all have talent. It's not a question of that for me. But if you didn't have Susanna Hoffs, I don't think we would even know who any of the rest of the members are.
And also, you're telling me that if Vicki wasn't the quote unquote chosen one, that she wouldn't have enjoyed that also? I mean, anybody would. Like, one of the things that she said was that it wasn't just that the media chose Susanna, it was that Susanna leaned into it. And it's like, come on, you would too.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Kill your own career because, you want to, like,
not be
this sounds shitty, but it's like, because you feel bad. Oh, are you jealous? Yeah, no, I think I will just totally put my fame in the garbage because I don't want you to feel bad.
If I'd have been in INXS as a man, I'd have been pretty jealous of Michael fucking Hutchins, because look at that dude. Okay, one of the most stellar looking men in the history of men, and like, I'm in this band, I'm just some schlub playing bass. Like, I get why, like, I would be jealous of that guy. But
Dave, would you swim in the hypothetically swim in the male pond with Michael Hutchins?
No.
I'm feeling like he might be your go gay for crush.
Look, I've said on occasion that, my man crush is David Duchovny. I think the guy's the coolest ever. I would love to hang out with him. Not sure what else would happen. Probably nothing. But I'm just saying, I can acknowledge my heterosexuality. I'm confident enough in it that I can say Michael Hutchins is a good-looking man.
Oh, hell yeah.
So
and listen, I'd swim in the lady pond with Susanna Hoffs.
Same. And Belinda Carlisle, just saying.
Right. I mean, she can't help that. And I do, like what you said, Shelley, like they implied that not only did the media that do that to her, but that she leaned into it and wanted that. They implied that she wanted that all along. And I'm saying, no, if you look at the early pictures of Susanna Hoffs, when she first joined the band and she had the really short hair and she was kind of mousy and whatever, you're saying that woman knows she's going to be one of the biggest sex symbols of the decade.
Yeah. No, she was like a nerd in high school and then got to college and was like, oh, wait, maybe I don't have to be a nerd. Nobody knows me. I can reinvent myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And because she studied things like the way to be on camera, or her mother was a filmmaker, maybe that might have lent to the fact that she could be on camera and she at least had some experience with it.
Right.
Yes.
And also she was super smart, or is super smart.
Yes.
And so that's another thing that could have caused some jealousy in the band. But I just feel like all of these years later, 40 to 45 years later, get over it. Grow up. I mean, come on. You're talking like you're 14.
Yeah.
It's like, grow up and be like, yeah, that was something that was created by the industry, by the media. I didn't like it. We couldn't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but instead, it just feels like she's still stuck on, well, Susanna, she caused this. It's her fault. And it's like, well, you're just doing what everybody else is doing, which is only focusing on Susanna.
To me, the book does seem to tell the story a little bit more from the perspective of Vicki and Debbi Peterson than it does from Susanna Hoffs. Now, I know all of them were interviewed. Three of them. Michael Steele wasn't interviewed exclusively for the book, though. I think
I would love to know the story there.
Her quotes are taken from somewhere. Well, I know she quit the band in like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So they got back together in the 2000s. They did the one album, some touring and whatever. And then she quit for good. And when I met Vicki Peterson and I was backstage, I made a joke about getting my record signed by everybody. And I said, maybe if Michael Steele comes out of the witness protection program, I can get her to autograph this too. And everyone laughed and stuff, but like they know she's gone. Debbi said that she raises horses out in she has a horse farm.
That sounds lovely. That makes me happy for her.
I do feel like, and granted, there's two of them and only one of her. So maybe that's why I feel like it's weighted towards the Petersons version of events, or maybe Susanna just doesn't want to answer for this bullshit anymore or whatever. But did you think that too? Or
yes,
I mean, I thought it was weighted one-sidedly a little bit.
Absolutely, I did.
You get the impression that Vicki and Debbi did not like the way things panned out with the career of the Bangles. You didn't get that impression from Susanna Hoffs. She didn't complain about David Kahn. She worked it to, she ended up working out. She liked then they moved into the next section where they worked with a different producer and they all wrote separately. She wound up with 2 huge hits on it. So did they lose sight of what they wanted? Did they make compromises, or is they just all wanted different things to begin with?
I would say that Susanna, she keeps going. You know what I mean? I think it was what it was. And like, listen, they're all probably really doing okay financially. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know what the others think, but I think for Susanna, she's present. She's all over the place. Did she induct Sam Cooke into the Rock Hall? I think that's who it was.
She inducted the Zombies.
The Zombies. Yeah. Okay. That was I love the Zombies, by the way. But
yeah, inducted the Zombies.
I think she's I think she's probably like, okay, that was a great experience. I'm going to go move on.
It should also be noted that none of the Bangles members independently had all that much success outside of the Bangles. Like, I like Susanna Hoffs' solo music. It didn't exactly blow up the charts, right?
Yeah.
And any of the groups that Vicki or Debbi or Michael Steele have been in, same difference. It's not about the music isn't good. It's just none of them blew up the same way they did the four of them together.
It seems like Vicki's insistence on hanging on to the original vision for the band is part of what made the band fail. Right? Like, and maybe it's not just Vicki, maybe it's Vicki and Debbi, but you know, the whole thing of like, we're gonna all have equal parts. We want to be a garage band. We don't want to be, you know, we want to be rockers. And I admire all of that. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes in life, you have to recognize that shit's changed, you know, and you can either sit there and be pissed about it and hold a grudge, or you can accept it and roll with it and take away the good things that you can. And in this instance, it seems like there's a lot of good they could have gotten if they would have just said, okay, this is what's happened, and let's just kick ass at it like Susanna did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I do think they all wanted the same thing at the beginning. I think they wanted to be an all-girl band, but they were like the Beatles, you know, and that all four of them had a personality and they were all sort of whatever. But the Beatles are an anomaly, okay?
Yeah.
And to want to be treated the same as the Beatles, most bands don't get treated like the Beatles, you know? And so I think they might have started off that way. I think that when things started moving the way that they moved, Susanna Hoffs did roll with it, and the Peterson sisters seemed to push back at it all the time and then just be constantly upset and angry about it. And they could have quit, you know? They could have fired Susanna Hoffs. They could have done something if it was really that much of a problem. But they sort of rolled with it and bitched about it at the same time. And so that was the worst of all worlds. You know, if you just sort of accepted it and like, okay, well, look, this is the way it's going to be. Okay. I mean, the media is going to focus on Susanna. She's going to be the quote lead singer, but we're all still going to have songs on the album, and the concert is all of us, whatever. Okay. But no, they couldn't focus on that. And here we are all these decades later, and they're still angry about it. And
it's sort of this like passive aggressive acceptance of it. Like, well, we're not going to do anything about it, but we don't like it. But we're going to continue to not like it for decades upon decades.
Right. And all these decades later, they still question Susanna Hoffs' motives about being in the band in the first place.
I feel like, so that just makes no sense for her.
Yeah.
I really ended the book feeling bad for Susanna Hoffs.
Unless we all are having this totally wrong impression, it just does seem like Susanna Hoffs is just doing her thing, and everybody, the band, is like shitting all over her for like, well, you're cuter and you did this, and the people focused on that, and it's like, what is she supposed to do?
Yeah, it's like, I'm so sorry for these gifts that I was given. Like, come on, you know.
Shelley, do you need a minute?
I need 1,985 minutes to talk about what's going on in 1985. With particularly misogyny and how prevalent it was in the careers of these women. And, you know, here's the thing, is that we've talked about already several instances of misogyny in the book. We've talked about the jealousy in the book between the band members. And the thing that I would like to point out about the intersection of these two things is that I think that women get characterized as being catty, and women don't support each other. And I know that in recent years, you know, women have, including myself, we're trying to be more supportive of each other and be each other's best advocates and not turn on each other because somebody's prettier or smarter or they have richer parents, right? But you know, ultimately, what is at the root of that cattiness, I think, is society's insistence on reinforcing how much prettiness matters, how much, or attractiveness or sex appeal or those things. It's like, if we as a society did not place such an emphasis on those things, do you really think women would be that catty about them? I don't. I think that those societal attitudes create that jealousy. They spark that competition and they pit women against each other. I don't think it's because women just suck and we're catty. I mean, I just can't believe that. I won't believe that because, not all women are like that. But the source of it is all these messages that we are told by the society we live in, that these things matter more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so what choice do we have to compete on that level? And it's such bullshit. It's just, where's my punching bag? I'm just, so that's it. Brief minute, because listen, I could go on for hours and hours. But hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. I get so frustrated by these types of things as a woman, especially, that it is hard for me to be eloquent about them, because I just.
Did you need a minute as well?
Yes. I'm actually, throughout this book, we get copious amounts of juice and gossip and backstabbing and, we hate Susanna. I want to give a lesson into some things in the book, because these women are inspired by incredible musicians. Liz Phair, unlike Liz Phair. Okay. So first off, I want to talk about, in the very beginning, they mentioned the Cowsills. And I will tell you now, Vicki is married to John Cowsill.
Correct.
Cowsills, I don't know who knows this. It's a family, and they kind of had a whole Partridge Family vibe. And the father was the manager, and I think there were maybe 5 or 6 kids. The mom was the singer. She died of emphysema a while back. And
they were the real life inspiration for the Partridge Family.
Yes, they were.
Right.
Yes. I'm sorry. Thank you, David.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
I will tell you, there's a documentary on them, and it's phenomenal. And the father is a son of a bitch. So anyway, they go through what all the kids are doing and what it was like. And like, when the kids kind of started leaving as they got older, because the father was a son of a bitch, and they're playing casinos. Like, it goes through the whole gamut. I mean, and one of them died in Katrina. I mean, it's just, it's sad. It's sad. And the one that the father was most abusive to just, never made it into the band. It's a phenomenal documentary.
I will say that I thought it was very well researched. It was well done. It did connect a lot of dots. It talked to a lot of people from their early days, earliest friends, people who saw them in the crowd, some peers of theirs that were around in the music scene at that time, such as members of the Go-Go's, Henry Rollins, the guys from Red Cross, that kind of stuff. They talked to a lot of them, some of their peers from the time. And I ultimately thought the book was pretty good. I guess I was a little bit soured on it because I did feel like it was the writer allowed Vicki and Debbi to gang up on Susanna Hoffs, and without her really responding all that much. And I'm sure she had an opportunity to. Maybe she didn't want to, or maybe that's an editorial decision that she made, that it went down that road. I don't know. Jen?
Okay. So the book was authorized by the sisters, by Debbi and Vicki.
It was?
So it's authorized, but I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, they all did interviews, so I assumed it was all 3. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I just wonder.
And I was asking Shelley this at a different time. Does an authorized biography mean that the band gets editorial control, meaning they read it at the end and can say, scratch that, scratch that, scratch that, or they give consent to this author, they do interviews, the author takes it and runs with it, and they put out the finished product? I don't know which is which in this case. I don't know which is more prevalent, but I have to believe that Susanna Hoffs could not have read that and been comfortable with it the way that it just continues to shit all over her for stuff that she couldn't have helped 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although look at how all of us came out at the end about Susanna. We're all like, Well, I feel sorry for her. I mean, I think we all feel a little bit of empathy for her because she did get so shit on. So maybe she's just like, let everybody see the kind of bullshit I've been dealing with for decades, you know?
Look at this shit. I've been dealing with these guys for 40 years. Look at them, like how
Yeah, she's like,
ridiculous they are.
say it. I don't give a shit.
Like, I
Something
imagine,
I've never heard before.
I imagine she's so cool. She probably said, "I'm sorry that they feel that way. Moving on."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
what's she supposed to do? I mean, look, I just saw Vicki and Debbi, we're in March, 2 months ago. Okay.
Great dark stuff episode, by the way.
They still look good. They still sing good. They still whatever. There's nothing preventing the three of them from getting back together other than their desire to. And maybe now that's never going to happen because the way that Susanna Hoffs was characterized by the Petersons in this book, maybe they're never going to get back together. Maybe that will be, this book will be the reason why the Bangles don't ever play again, because they thought they had moved past all this. And now they realize, we hadn't moved past all this. Because there's a way to recount this story and the way you felt at the time without making it seem like it's still an issue now. Yeah. And the way the Petersons presented it was, it's still an issue for them now. They're not just recounting stories from 40 years ago.
Well, I'd be curious to see what would happen if they were inducted into the Rock Hall.
They deserve it, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they should.
I would be curious to see. I bet they'd play for a song or two.
I think they would too. I don't think they hate each other. And honestly, it was kind of like one of you guys said, it's not like Susanna Hoffs hasn't heard this before.
Yeah.
She's familiar with what their opinion is. If you look at the behind the music, the Peterson sisters make it pretty clear back then what the issue was and how upset they were that the focus went on to Susanna. So it's not like she's unaware of it, So I don't know.
And as we've talked about, the sort of slant towards the Peterson sisters, two things I wonder. One is, does the author have some sort of relationship with Vicki Peterson? I felt it was more Vicki focused than Vicki and Debbi. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it made me wonder if she has a friendship with them at all, or previous dealings with them. And then the other thing I wonder is, is this the opportunity to give the Petersons their time in the spotlight and to kind of recognize them for the really important role they played in the band and not make it all Susanna?
Could be. I mean, I hadn't really thought of that angle, but maybe there is something to that. And maybe that's why Susanna just kind of left it alone of like, okay, so they get to vent, they get to say their side of the story. I'm going to say my side of the story, which is everything was fine. I mean, not that everything was fine, but that she went about her career and had that success and whatever. And she's not bitter about things. I mean, so maybe there is something to that, that there's a sign there, but, Vicki is the leader of the band. I said that earlier in our episode, and I've thought that in the past. I did an entire video. I'm not recommending you watch it though, where because it was during the pandemic and I had pandemic beard. I look really bad, but where I did an entire video and dissected the All Over the Place album by the Bangles, their debut album, and it's a 20-minute video, whatever. And I came to the conclusion that Vicki is the leader of the band. Okay, there's no question
she
about
is the
that.
clear leader,
right? But Susanna Hoffs may be the dominant singer, but that's not the lead singer. That's just the more dominant singer. And I think that maybe you just have to come up with different terms to come up with the way that it is.
I mean, it's a deep, 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 deep dive into the Bangles. And it, much like the Replacements book, it gets into every detail. And for me, I enjoyed learning about the band. I like the band. I mean, it's kind of a lot of stuff that you kind of know, but don't necessarily know. It was fine. I thought it was fine.
I feel like it was so well researched. Like when I was listening to it, I was thinking, good Lord, what's the process for combing through all of this information and deciding what goes in and what goes out and, what the chapters are and, all of those things. And so I have a hell of a lot of respect for that. That's not an easy thing to do. The thing I was surprised by was that for so much drama that was in the band, you didn't really feel the drama in the book. And I think it's because, the focus, and this isn't a bad thing, the focus was on, getting the facts right and telling the facts of this band's career. But I would have liked a little bit more technicolor and more like scenes,
Yeah. Yes. On that.
So, kind of like I feel like that's why Renda Fink's book was so good, was that she just didn't tell the facts of things. She actually put us in the scene of the story. And that's probably hard for somebody to do who wasn't in the band, but a little bit more of a storytelling feel would have made it more interesting to me, I think.
I felt like, David, you're the big fan, but I felt like there were a really a lot of kind of irrelevant and muddy details.
Well, I will point out one muddy and irrelevant detail that I was debating whether I should point it out. And that is when one of the characters refers to Susanna Hoffs as a Jewish American princess. I'm sorry, that's offensive as fuck. And it wasn't the author that said it, and it wasn't the band. It was a quote. But the reason why I was bothered by it, because you can quote somebody calling someone the N-word, and it's just a quote from somebody else. It's not a characterization. It was unnecessary to the quote. So I wish I had it in front of me, because I don't, but it was something they were describing Susanna, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you know her because she's such a Jewish American princess. Kind of like that. Like, it's so obvious, Yeah. And I think maybe people are decades removed from when that was a problematic term, when Jewish women would be like stalked and scream Jap, 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 and that kind of shit. Like, they don't remember how dumb that was, how offensive that was. And so I just thought that the author could have just left that little tiny part out. Who cares that that guy said it? I know it was somebody else saying it, but it was irrelevant to the quote. Point of personal privilege. I just was annoyed by that. I didn't think that should have been in the book, but hey,
yeah,
it's one little sentence out of an otherwise.
But that's meaningful, and it's something that, you have to be careful about the choices that you make.
Because I'm sure that's not the only time that she's been referred to that way by other people, like back in the 80s or then. I mean, that was nobody uses those terms now. I mean, I don't really hear that anymore, but I mean, that was a big thing in the 80s, for sure. Yeah, you probably remember. Yeah.
Yes, but I'm telling you, Susanna, just because she's beautiful and because she's cool, she just became, she became the source of all jealousy and, completely take her down for things that she's not even guilty of or does.
Agreed.
It's just jealousy.
The wolf is David Kahn.
Yeah.
What an asshole. I feel like he preyed upon the Bangles and caused them, especially Debbi, serious harm. I think that the lamb is Debbi Peterson. The reason is that I feel so bad for her. Like, she's clearly such a talented musician. I mean, this is a person who had never played the drums, got sat behind a drum set, and just could drum along to a song like instantly. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's like,
she's not just competent, she's a good drummer.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like she never got recognized for all of her talents, that she was a multi-instrumentalist and a singer. I feel like she just kind of got brushed aside, and she got treated very terribly by David Kahn. And so I feel for our poor lamb, Debbi. Okay. And then Ultimate Survivor, listen, Vicki's not going to like this answer that I have, but I'm going to say Susanna, because she seems to be having a lovely life despite having lots of hate being thrown at her. Also love too, but being objectified, having your band members be jealous of you, those aren't easy things to navigate. And look at her now. She's written a great novel. She, Dave, I think you sent us the video of her playing Manic Monday in her house. She lives in a beautiful home. Her voice still sounds great.
If you follow her on Instagram, she's great. She makes little songs all the time and does recordings, sometimes from her like closet. She'll be in her shoe closet doing songs. I mean, It's great. Her Instagram is awesome.
Yeah.
I
She's
think
awesome.
that her
I'm
acceptance and her ability to accept life as it comes at her has served her well. And so for that reason, she gets my survivor.
Okay.
I'm
go ahead.
Shelley. I'm with Shelley on everything.
The Wolf, the Lamb, the Ultimate Survivor. Okay, I'll try and be different. I mean, the Wolf, it's hard not to say David Kahn because it really was.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the music industry in general because they conquered the music industry. The Bangles didn't fail. They overwhelmingly succeeded. Yeah. People remember them. Nobody knows who David Kahn is. Okay. Everybody knows who the Bangles are. Okay. So that's one thing. I would say
I love that point. Yeah. Screw you, David.
The Lamb. I want to say Vicki. I mean, I'm sorry, Debbi, like you said, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. She did seem like she was the most affected by being shit on by the producer and some of her talents minimized when they shouldn't be minimized. The Ultimate Survivor is the Bangles music because everybody likes the Bangles now. And this is a part of reclaiming their legacy. They are not just Pop-Tarts from the old days. They wrote and created some great songs. And I think so their image is being rehabilitated, hopefully with this book.
Favorite Bangle is Susanna. My favorite Bangle song is If She Knew What She Wants. But just a second, I'm not done yet. Hazy Shade of Winter. It's the most brilliant cover. I don't like covers. You guys know that. It is one of the most brilliant covers I've ever heard. On that
note, Simon and Garfunkel themselves re-added that song into their repertoire after the Bangles made it a hit. It was not a song that they used to play all that often.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
They just perfect.
Yeah. Shelley?
I'm going to go with Susanna Hoffs also. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say my favorite song is In Your Room.
Good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just, I love that song. And the video is really adorable too.
It is.
Maybe that's not the right word, but it's a fun video.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so my favorite is obviously Susanna Hoffs, no question. My favorite song is A Hero Takes a Fall, which is the first song by them I ever heard. It was the first video that I saw. That's how it was my introduction to them. And it still stands out as a fantastic song. Mm-hmm. And I like the lyrics. I like the way it's performed. I like everything about it. The video is great too. So those are mine, definitely Susanna and Hero Takes a Fall.
Well, and that's the song that made Prince pay attention to them too, right?
Correct. Correct. And in the video, I don't know. I don't like to keep going off on the same points, but they criticized Susanna Hoffs because she wore a French maid outfit. Okay, that's like 2 seconds of the video. Most of the video is them busking on a corner, playing with their instruments. And they were wearing regular like clothes, not even like sexy clothes. So it's like, get over this fucking thing of Susanna Hoffs. I'm sorry. God.
It's because they're jealous. Next book is going to be we're going to go deep into Zeppelin. Yes. So we're going to be reading Hammer of the Gods. Here's the thing about this book, and I think I have shared this with you guys. I was traveling somewhere years ago, and I was reading it on the plane, and I was so disturbed by the particular chapter that we will cover at a later time. I threw it away in the bathroom.
Oh my God!
I said, "Screw this book! I cannot do this." But now, guys, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it together.
All right.
I can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. I can't wait.
Robert Plant was in our Bangles book, guys. Remember that? He was in the Bangles book. He went up to their bus, and he said, "Do you know what time the band plays?"
And
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Robert Plant. So it's interesting book how a lot of things have come full circle with the record.
That was pretty cool. I forgot about that little detail.
Yeah. So I do want to say one quick thing about that is that they were like, Robert Plant actually would show up and listen to the music. Prince would like show up in his limo and then just like leave.
Right. So, he would make it
more on you, Robert Plant.
Robert Plant just wanted to see music and then he would leave. All right, right, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure that you check us out on Facebook and Instagram and like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't ever miss an episode. Click the notifications button as well, because that way you get notified when our videos pop up in case you forget that we post a new video on the 1st of every month.
Make it easy for yourself. Just
It's
like
like an Egyptian.
It's like nothing. Yeah. I mean, what do we need to worry about?
You got it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We will see you
Thanks, everybody.
next month.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.